I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is K-Dot. Before we begin today's episode, which is a preview against the New York Jets on Christmas Eve, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and K-Dot,
share this shit.
Share this shit.
I gotta say, your
please,
intro
and thank
now,
you. Yes.
to the point it almost feels like a song. Like I know the cadence. Feels like a rap.
You know,
like
I've been working on it. I've been working on it.
It's
I've
nice.
just
It's nice.
I don't
Flows.
practice it, but I work on it with each episode that
DC
we
sports,
do.
DC baseball.
It's kind of enjoyable. Well, because whenever Ridge Wear Your Helmet at guest co-host, he does the same thing.
Yeah, no, you got a
He
whole
copies it
bit.
perfectly.
It's a
No, I
thing.
appreciate that.
It's legit.
And so, like we said, this is the episode previewing the game against the New York Jets that takes place again on Christmas Eve, 1 p.m. Eastern. And honestly, there are probably better things to do with your time, but we have to go ahead and preview this episode or preview this game. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. K-Dot, the New York Jets, the 2023 version of the New York Jets, they had Hard Knocks cover them. They brought in Aaron Rodgers. There was a lot of hope around the team. And then within 4 snaps, Monday night, September 11th, Rodgers goes down, pops his Achilles. He's not playing. All of a sudden, Zach Wilson's back in. It's not gone well. And now he's concussed. He's out. Trevor Siemian's going to come in and play quarterback against us. This New York Jets team, the floor is yours. You could say whatever you want about them. They're 5-9 this season.
Bah humbug. Like that's. I don't want this shit. You don't want this shit. No one wants to watch this shit. Yeah, this team is. The Jets have like all right. When Aaron Rodgers goes down week 1, I think everybody kind of punts on the season to a certain degree, at least subconsciously, right? But then Jets fans, because they were so fucking hyped for the Aaron Rodgers thing, kind of had the organization in a spot where they were like, they tried to force the issue. And this is like, oh my God, like we got to do something. There was all these rumors about making trades and doing this, that, and the other. And then nobody wants Zach Wilson at all anymore. And it's this whole thing. Whereas, like, if I really look at the Jets, if I'm being completely honest, up until a certain point in the season, my issue wasn't necessarily Zach Wilson itself, is with the team and the offense who's ran by Nathaniel Hackett. Everybody remembers him in Denver and the glorious job that he did, even though Sean Payton's a dick for what he said. It wasn't good. This team is just not functioning properly offensively before we get into the XFOs, though. And they had a defense that was great, still is great. It's just they can't complement each other at all. They don't know what they're supposed to do offensively. It feels very akin to some of the criticism we talk about in Washington, where the offense and the defense don't play complementary football. And they also in a situation where they're not putting the quarterback to have the utmost success in the system that it is. So it almost feels like they're continuing whatever they thought they were going to do with Aaron Rodgers, with Zach Wilson, and 2 very different players. So the team is just collapsed. They're shit. Yeah, this is an underperforming team that kind of understood, I think, subconsciously that they weren't going to do anything because the big offseason acquisition of Aaron Rodgers was there. And when that went away, so did all the confidence that they had. The only thing that really you look at is 2 weeks ago, Zach Wilson played maybe the best game of his life against, what was it? It was the Texans game.
Yep.
Even
300 yards, 2 touchdowns.
And then he gets the concussion, and now it's over, right? So,
now it's over.
This is just a team that kind of is shit. Like, they're just not, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and move on to
Although
the
I did
X's
think
and
Aaron
O's.
Rodgers was going to be back this week. I remember I had that long-term bet that I was like, he was going to be here. And now it seemed like legit.
He's activated. He just won't play because the season
out of playoff contention.
Out of playoff contention. Should he have even played if they were in playoff contention? He admitted that he's not 100%. Right. Who knows? But I
think if they were, he'd play.
That's now just a hypothetical at this point. Let's talk about the quarterback that is playing. And we're going to begin with the preview of the Jets offense against this Commanders defense. Trevor Siemian is going to be playing. Currently, he's played 2 games. His completion percentage is under 50%. He has 0 touchdowns. He has 2 interceptions. K-Dot, why is he going to light us up for 30 or more points like everybody else has?
Because as everyone who's previewing this game, if you do any sort of Google search, if you are on Twitter for half a second, you see 32nd ranked offense against 32nd ranked defense, right? So this is the idea is the very stoppable force meets the very movable object is the way that it's kind of put, right?
Something's got to give.
Sort of.
Somehow that's not true, actually.
It's not. So that's the thing is like when people hear that, they're like, okay, so they both suck. And it's like, yeah, they can both suck at the same time. And we just have a very, very boring shit game. Just punt, 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 punt. Like that's very much so if you're looking at anything,
but then it does give, right? Because that implies our defense is stopping them.
Or their offense is just not doing
bunch of drops.
Anything. So like we've talked ad nauseum this year about
throws.
how our defense doesn't dictate anything. It's usually the offense that shoots themselves in the foot.
Yes.
That we benefit from.
Yes.
There's a chance with this particular team that they basically chop their fucking foot off in the process of this game that you can kind of look at and get. It's just they have to play up to the talent level that Washington has. Look, there were moments in the last couple of weeks since Jack Del Rio's been ousted that you've seen, okay, that looks okay. Oh, okay, that looked all right. But
yeah.
Never really put together, or you get 2 good plays and it's offset by a bomb in which no one's within 20 yards of the receiver, right?
Right.
So if I'm looking at that, I look at the Jets players and I'm like, there are some guys in the Jets offense that are fairly talented. Garrett Wilson, great. I love him as far as wide receiver. At running back, Breece Hall, who everyone was super excited about this year, but he hasn't done anything. And I think that's also because defenses know if we stop the run and force their quarterbacks to throw with the scheme that they have in throwing, they're not going to amount to anything. So I think you kind of just stick with that game plan. The idea with Washington is this offense sucks so badly. You cannot get beat deep the way that we have been against this team. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Just from a talent standpoint in Washington, it should be unacceptable to allow that to happen. Will that be the case? Lord knows we don't know. Because there's nothing that New York has shown that they can do that, but there's nothing Washington has shown they can stop that.
If I'm allowed to fan oversimplify this, I think the game plan is largely the same that it has been against the New York Jets. Stack the box, shut down Breece Hall, and then double or shadow Garrett Wilson and make somebody else beat you. Make Trevor Siemian throw to somebody else, right? Whether it be Xavier Gibson, whether it be Alan Lazard, whether it be like whomever it may be, Tyler Conklin, like make somebody else beat you. Shut down Garrett Wilson, shut down Breece Hall, and see where the chips fall. I think that's about it, right?
Look, if you look at that running, they have not hit 80 yards. They hit 80 yards rushing once since week 8.
Breece hasn't hit 30 in the last 4 games.
Yards. Didn't even get 100 passing yards last game. Like it's been shit. Like they're just this guys. Welcome to this could be the greatest game of all time, just incompetence, or what is probably going to happen, which this might ruin your goddamn Christmas. So if you want to hear what I got to say about that shit, rewind the fucking Thanksgiving tape. Don't let this ruin your holiday.
Yeah, that is a good point, and we may need the disclaimer at the end of this as well. The Jets have a terrible offensive line, which certainly contributes to their ineptitude on offense, and we also have a pretty bad offensive line, flipping the script, talking about our Commanders' offense against this Jets defense. The Jets defense, on the other hand, came in with hype this season, sort of like we did, except they've lived up to it. This is the 2nd straight season they've had a very, very good defense. In fact, their defensive numbers this season are better than they were last season. They are getting absolutely amazing production from everybody on that side of the ball. K-Dot, this Jets defense, how do we move the ball on these guys? Do we?
No. So this is where it comes at when people are looking at this game as like a toss-up or anything. This is where it separates it. There's only one good unit playing in this game, and it's the Jets defense. That's the difference.
Yes.
So like when it comes to Washington, there's so many fucking question marks, right? Like we know what we saw earlier in the season as far as Sam Howell and his passing numbers. Like I still think we lead the league in passing attempts overall, even though all the other numbers are mediocre at fucking best, right? Because if you're passing number one and you think that's a success, and you should be around the top 5 in passing touchdowns, you should be around the top 5 and everything. You're not. So there's an angle of the Jets defense should absolutely trounce us. Like we already know from an injury standpoint, Brian Robinson hasn't practiced, not looking too likely. Antonio
He'll
Gibson's-
probably be out. He's missed all 3 practices. Yeah.
Right. Antonio Gibson has looked good in spots. Everybody's seen the highlights of Jonathan Williams being open in certain areas of this last game that Sam Howell just didn't hit. I think the thing with this game is going to be you're not going to have success running the ball necessarily against these dudes. I mean, some teams have.
Well, let me push back on that because
Yeah,
they are 27th in terms of rushing yards. Now, is it because they're hard to pass on and you get a lead against them and you keep running? Sure, that is possible. But that would be the way through.
It has to be, right? Like
Yes.
the idea that you're going to try to throw on Sauce Gardner and the rest of that fucking team with the
DJ Reed,
they have,
he's been great. Yeah.
And with the interior pass rush, with what they have, it's going to be difficult. So this should be the Eric Bieniemy. Let me see what I have in my run toolbox.
Yes.
We know it's not great. And if they don't have the full complement of running backs, if Brian Robinson, who is the overall best running back,
will be out.
if he's out,
Very confident
you don't have the full complement of guys. And I have yet to at any point this season fully trust Eric Bieniemy in that running attack. So then I go to Sam Howell, and you talk about Sam Howell, who has not played a good game in quite some time.
Yes.
And coming off of getting benched, even though it's supposed to be for his own protection. I think this game might be a game that you should be benched for your own fucking protection if there's anything, right? Like this defense is scarier. Why wouldn't he get benched for his own protection in this game if that's what he'd do, if that's what they were doing last week? So that doesn't make sense to me. And I think Sam Howell, while I might make fun of certain aspects of him, is not a fucking dummy. He realizes he got benched and there's no real getting through that. Like how does he bounce back from that, right? What is the mental look on that? And can he overcome that with a Jets defense that's going to be hounding his ass, with a Jets defense that can easily get the turnovers, with a Jets defense that can make you feel like absolute dog shit? That to me is going to be the thing. What is Eric Bieniemy's game plan? Can he actually stick to a run in a game? And if he can't, what does that do to Sam Howell both in this game and long term?
Yeah, and the Jets, by the way, just back to their offensive side of the ball, they are the lowest team in terms of, or the worst ranked team in terms of time of possession. So it is an opportunity to be able to possess the ball against this Jets team. And that is an opportunity. Everything is pointing towards run, and that will also protect Sam. We've yet to sort of see Bieniemy do that. So this is a test for him, which it may be his last few weeks here in DC based on how things have been going, right? So like it is an opportunity for him to be able to show that he's capable of doing that he wants to be able to do that. Jonathan Williams, as of right now, not on track to play either. So that's missing Brian Robinson. That's missing Jonathan Williams. That's going to be Chris Rodriguez, who had the most carries last week. It's going to be Antonio Gibson, who is still our sort of Swiss Army knife, who he and his agent, with impending free agency coming, are saying he's a weapon. He's a receiver more than a running back. Like, so there's all that going on too. No, he is. But he's making it very, very known. And so last little bit of news on that side of the ball, Charles Leno, very likely out as well at left tackle. So
no, the biggest plus for us, period, is Cameron Cheeseman. Good guy, terrible football player.
It was actually, yeah, man. Yep. So new long snapper incoming.
Look, in a game that's going to be potentially a lot of fucking punting, it matters. Like,
yeah, but it couldn't be worse. So I mean, it is what that there's a reason
that's
he gets cut in a lost season.
But I will say this: if you have, that's the one we never talk about special teams in these, right? So let's do a mini special teams moment in a game in which you're looking at a whole hell of a lot of potential punting and looking at where you're going to field of possession and all that shit is going to be a huge thing in this game. Tressway is still our best player on this fucking roster.
Yeah.
And he's been crippled to a certain degree with the snapping that's been happening this season. I don't think it's too far removed to say that if he's got increased snapping ability or a better snapper, the punts could be better. The Jets could be in their own on their own side of the field a whole hell of a lot, could shorten the field for us quite a bit. And then you also have a punt returner in us and Jamison Crowder, who also played for the Jets, that might want some revenge. I'm just saying, if there's anything that I'll look at in the sense of a spark for us, it could be special teams.
Certainly. This is absolutely a game that could be won on special teams. Because, again, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to move the ball, at least on paper. You never know. But at least on paper, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to move it. And yeah, exactly. And then on the other side of the ball, maybe the Jets can't because they keep shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know. They are the worst ranked offense, but we've seen this movie before. Let's go ahead and go to the predictions. So the Commanders, despite playing Trevor Siemian, are 3.5-point underdogs on the road against this Jets team. And the over-under is set at 37.5. So, K-Dot, as always, I need a score. I need a winner. I need a player of the game.
13-10 New York. Player of the game. I don't fucking care.
Cool. I
Sauce Gardner, pick 6.
I also have I don't fucking care as my player of the game. And I have the Jets winning as well by a score of 8-5. I think it's just going to be one of those really weird. You see it. I know you see it.
I don't want to spend my Christmas Eve doing that.
8-5 Jets. We're going to go ahead and go over to, once again, player of the game. I don't fucking care. We're going to go to the comment mailbag. If I had to pick one, Tyler Conklin catches the winner. They somehow go for 2 and make it. That's what's going to happen. All right. We got 3 comments. Woo! With the comment mailbag. Appreciate it. Sam Sullivan. Shout out, Sam. Appreciate you. It seems we should move on from Howell or Terry so Howell can get his guy. Should we use our first-round pick next year on a quarterback? If so, which QBs do you like coming out next year? Appreciate the comment there. Sam, K-Dot, do you want to begin or do you want me to begin there?
Sam has a guy. His name is De'Ami Brown. He fucking sucks. No, Terry McLaurin is a known commodity and product here. If I had to pick between one of the two, I'm usually going to pick Terry.
We're all picking Terry.
We're picking Terry. But the idea that, once again, as we've said, anyone can go. Mm-hmm. It's about what the new administration wants.
I thought you were going to say more there. I mean, just the way you paused, it seemed like you had a little more, so I just gave the space to breathe.
I could have rambled to a certain degree, but there's like there is an element of like, look.
No, I was honestly pleasantly surprised. It was a misread on my part.
Open it back up, motherfucker. So
go ahead.
Next year is a clean slate year. There are guys that I love that I want to see have success here in Washington. If whoever comes in, be a GM or whatever else, I'm of the idea that this team is talented and coaching has let them down tremendously. And if that's the case, then there's stuff to build off of. I don't believe in quick fixes, but I also don't think that this team is so far removed from being able to be a contender. And if that's the case, then I don't want everybody to go. That's my belief. But if whoever we hire to be the GM or the head coach does not agree with that, then I agree with letting them do whatever the fuck they want, which means clearing house potentially. No one's safe. There is not a single person on the roster that I can think of that I wouldn't be okay if the new administration said I need to get rid of them. And the thing is, that might go bad. Might go terribly. But I want to believe in the new administration to give us a potential winner.
I do think Tressway is our little Sebastian, if you will, to reference Parks and Rec. Like, because
How old is he?
Who, Tressway or little Sebastian?
Tressway. I feel like he's been on the team for 20 years now. I think he's been
let me check. I just wanted to check real quick. So he's 33.
33?
Yeah, he's a punter.
Yeah, he's
he
a
can
punter.
keep going for a while. He can keep going for a while. Before he joins the Pat McAfee show as another punter. And then we got, I didn't even answer the question. So real quick, appreciate that, Sam. Should we use our first round pick next year on a quarterback? I agree with K-Dot. Like, you're 4-10 as of right now. We both are picking 4-11. Everything's on the board. If the new GM, head coach, etc., want a quarterback, right now we're picking 4th overall. You don't always get that high up in the draft. Go for it. That's fine. I have no issue with it. I personally would prefer an offensive lineman, like a left tackle, because I think our offensive line sucks. But if there's a QB that they absolutely love, go for it. Which QBs? We'll do probably a deeper breakdown of that given our draft position. But I mean, top 4, you're looking at Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels is beginning to skyrocket if you look at mock drafts, and he's fun to watch, admittedly. Very, very fun to watch. Could be a game-changing type player. I would personally prefer Jaden Daniels, but
he just won the Heisman, didn't
he? He did. Yeah. But long way to go until that point. And as of right now, I still prefer an offensive lineman. Then we go over to...
You didn't say Marvin Harrison. Strange.
This isn't a receiver issue. And then we got Ridge, where you helmet at. Shout out. I just began reading it and was like, oh boy. Always so much talk about the QB and finding the guy, which is funny coming off of Sam's comment. Man, what about just winning? Might be an unpopular opinion, but let's build up this offensive line and defense. And F it if Jacoby and Terry have that connection, let it ride with them next year. Look at what the Browns are doing with Flacco. I don't want to wait years to experience success. My favorite years as a fan came watching Brunell chuck it to Moss and Sean Springs, Philip Daniels, Marcus Washington, etc. on the other end. Super Bowl team? No, but we were excited and had a shot every week. I'm just dead inside now. Here's the thing. I appreciate the comment. Murnau, I love you, bud. This comment's everywhere. I just need to be very, very clear.
He's in a dark place.
Yeah, yeah. Because what about just winning? Right. And then building the O-line and defense, but you don't want to wait years. It takes years to build the entire roster potentially, right? And the thing is, it's not like it's a lack of trying. It's not like we haven't had draft picks. We've just missed on almost all of them. So, I mean, you look at Detroit, for example, the last couple drafts have been excellent. So now all of a sudden they are building that team. But if you keep whiffing over and over, then what are we even building? If you whiff on the free agent signings, what are we even building? So yeah, we end up talking about the QB because at least we can isolate one position. But of course we want to build the whole team. Of course we want to do that. Look at the Browns with Flacco. Of course, hey, they look great. The defense is fantastic. They have Nick Chubb when he's healthy. They've got Amari Cooper. Like, they've got guys. They've got a culture. And that's what we keep talking about more than anything, is establishing that culture to be able to build. Again, to Matt Regan's probably fucking loving this right now, but to highlight Detroit, Dan Campbell, Sheila Ford, Brad Holmes, etc., they built a culture, or are building a culture right now. And you look at them now, they're not the Lions of old, right? They're going to likely host a playoff game, but it took some time. Unfortunately, it is going to take some time, and we need to look at every single roster spot. But I do understand you feeling dead inside right now. That I do. Go ahead, K-Dot.
I think I want to go long on this. Should we save this for after the pod?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that reaction coming after the pod, Myrtle. And then we got Blood Clot. Shout out Blood Clot. As always, that game is too depressing to talk about. In reference to the Rams beating us 28-20, like when the defensive backs got confused and let Cooper Kupp just run uncontested. When have we ever gone against a team where Terry was just running by himself? Never. Our team, especially our coaches, are a joke. So I'll ask something else today. Amit, where did you get that Commander sweatshirt? Seriously, I can't find it. Yes, as much of a joke as our team is, I'm still looking at gear. K-Dot, did you get your stuff from the Korean company? So I'll begin by answering the first question, and then K-Dot, you can answer the Korean company question. So this sweatshirt, by the way, I love it. Shout out Will Sutton from DC Scores. I guess they have a partnership with the Commanders, I want to say, and they had a lot of extra gear. And so I went over to his office, we got lunch, and he was like, by the way, I got a ton of extra Commanders gear. Do you want this? I was like, yes, I do. It was that simple. I can see if he has extra. And if he does, you just need to shoot me a size. You follow us on Twitter as well. So just DM me your size and I'll go check with Will. Maybe there's an extra one. But that's the answer to that question. I got it from DC Scores, which is dope. Go ahead, K-Dot. Korean company.
No.
All right. Cool. And that was the comment mailbag. This was District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode, the preview against the New York Jets. If you enjoyed the episode, and frankly, this one was just tough to do. If you didn't, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do. And K-Dot?
Share this shit and protect your mentals this holiday season.
Please do protect your mentals this holiday season. After the pod begins right now. K-Dot, in reference to Ronald's comment, Ridge where your helmet at's comment. The floor is yours.
So I've been thinking about this team quite a bit, as we do, because we do this fucking podcast about them. I started getting upset the other day as I was just thinking about the team. And I was thinking about, like, why are we here? Like, going into this season, the thought process was all we needed was a quarterback to get to a point in which we would be playoff contending, right? Because, like, the defense, we had it in high esteem. We knew that linebacker was weak, but the idea was hopefully they hit on the Emmanuel Forbes pick, but overall the secondary and everything in Washington, it might be a slow start, but they're going to get right. Offensively, quarterback away. Carson Wentz didn't work. The Taylor Heineke was limited. We just needed quarterback play. And you think about last season, they play the Cowboys in that one game, and you're like, what? Other than the strength of schedule being harder, how could you look at this team and think that they were going to perform worse this year than they were last year? Just didn't compute. I think it starts going bad with the Eric Bieniemy hire. Eric Bieniemy comes over and he's the offense coordinator, and from what I can tell, he didn't bring any of his own guys with him. I don't know of a lot of
Andrew
other
Wiley.
dudes. So you say that, and we're going to come to that in just a second. But as far as coaching staff, a lot of the coaching staff were remnants of the Scott Turner, Ron Rivera guys that are here, and he's just kind of making it work with who he's got. I didn't see a full. I'm bringing my offensive, like, where is the I'm bringing my offensive staff that was there in Kansas City with me? I'm bringing this, that, and the other because I'm going to change the culture. I'm going to change this. It felt like Eric Bieniemy was kind of a dude rolling solo that came here. It's like, I got the ideas, I got this. And then in that same semblance, you have Ron Rivera that says, we're going to give him carte blanche, full control over the offense, right? So then you think about that and you're like, okay, but what did Ron Rivera say all last year going into this offseason? When they fired Scott Turner, it was, we need to be a run-first team. And people went crazy about that, right? Like, oh, the new league, this, that, and the other. But if you look at it, when we had our most success here in Washington in the Ron Rivera era is when the running game was working, right? When you control time possession because it's complementary football for a defense. That's the recipe. Eric Bieniemy comes in and is the least run-centric coach maybe in the history of the NFL.
And he's a former running back.
He's a former running back. But what happens there? Where's the conversation from Ron Rivera saying that I want a run-first guy to you make the hire for Eric Bieniemy? And Eric Bieniemy is supposed to have complete carte blanche over the offense, right? But what conversation happened to formulate what it is we were going to look at in offense? Then even like let's look at last week. Ron Rivera says it was his decision that they benched Howell. Why? That's not your side of the football.
But I'm so glad you said that, because when Del Rio got let go, and you'll remember this, we said it on this podcast, Rivera made it a point that he was going to have none of his fingerprints on the offense at all.
So you have no fingerprints on the offense, but it was your decision that Sam Howell's going to get benched, and you're putting in Brissett. Something's not computing. And if you look back, I'm just saying that, like, yes, I understand a head coach saying, I'm going to give the offensive coordinator a lot of flexibility with this, but you still are the head coach. You still need to kind of dictate the way that the team is supposed to be built and the way the team is supposed to be run, right? How can you say, I want a run-first team that complements the defense and get a guy whose pass-to-run ratio is 80-20?
And not have that change at any point. It's been consistent.
Right. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm benching Sam Howell. Who's in control of what? And who's talking to who?
And I just want to do a quick aside, because we could chat about this more after the pod. We've earned it for the level of ineptitude we've dealt with this season with this team. The Buffalo Bills right now if they, here's an example, right? So they have Josh Allen, and everyone acknowledges that can be Superman. Can be inconsistent as well, of course. I mean, he has all those turnovers, and whenever they lose games to bad teams, it's because Josh did too much.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see the way they played last week against Dallas, it honestly like moved me, because that was old school. It felt like watching the Steelers or the Ravens, of just like, we're going to run. James Cook is a very talented back.
Mhm.
Allen only threw it 15 times.
Mhm.
And they controlled the line of scrimmage against a team in Dallas that is supposed to be bullying you, and bullied them and
when asked
dominated them.
after the
And what
game,
happened to their defense? All of a sudden, they look spectacular. So when we talk about complementary football, the simplest way to think of it is being able to have balance on offense, or if you're going to skew in one direction, run, because it allows the time of possession to go. So I wanted to make that point.
You're 100% right.
Go for it.
And when asked after the game about the run and pass ratio, they said the offense coordinator, I forget who they got in there right now.
Joe Brady right now.
Joe Brady. He said, it was working, so we did it.
It can be that simple sometimes. And I think a lot of coaches tend to overthink.
Right.
So you see it with Arthur Smith, for example, in Atlanta.
Right.
Some coaches think they're smarter than they actually are, or are just like overthinking the simple stuff. And so it was refreshing to hear Joe Brady go, that was working.
So going back to
the comment
overall,
sure.
No, we're still in the comment space to a certain degree. It's just,
okay.
We're like Renault, we're free forming. We're stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
So I look at that, the disconnect between what Ron Rivera says and what Eric Bieniemy's doing. But then I also look the offensive line moves, because you mentioned Andrew Wiley. The offensive line that they have here in Washington are made up of big, bruising, run block primarily offensive linemen. The moves that they made are dudes that more excel, if you look at PFF grades or anything else, in run blocking a whole hell of a lot more than they pass block. There's a disconnect. You make the moves in the offseason to bring in more running back, run blocking style offensive linemen,
and
you do the opposite thing. The same criticism we had about the Scott Turner era, which I was saying that, like, when you hear about, like, even when Jay Gruden was, more than Jay Gruden was a bit of a dick, but like when Shanahan was here, and the conversations that could happen within the coaching staff and the challenging each other with whoever has the best idea is going to win this. It still feels as though Ron Rivera has an office in the end of the hall that he doesn't leave. Eric Bieniemy has a room in the end of the hall that he doesn't leave. Eric Bieniemy's talking to the players in a certain way, but I don't think he's talking to the position guys, because the position guys aren't his guys.
I see.
There's nothing cohesive. There's not a team here.
So if I can boil down what you're saying, Bieniemy was brought here. It seems like that conversation about what we truly wanted to do on offense was never had. And he was also isolated because he didn't even bring in his own guys. He just, by choice, potentially. I don't know. I don't know the background behind that.
Isolated and left alone.
Yes.
Which you should, look, if you want to give him power, fine. But you need to talk to him.
But
you need to have an understanding of what's happening.
Yes, that's true. And that, again, speaks to the higher level of just culture, right? That's a lot of what we talk about. People being on the same page. That's what that means. And people having, and same page, meaning a collectively shared philosophy on how we're going to play. There's a mission. And right now, based on what we're seeing, that's not true. If Rivera's saying run first and Bieniemy's throwing 80% of the time, that's an immediate disconnect. Then the coaching itself is bad. I want to quickly run through some of our draft picks in the Ron Rivera era, because this idea of build the offensive line and defense, I want to just push back a little bit and say, I'm going to read out these names and you tell me if they've made a significant impact. Like, honestly, okay? Because this is how it's done. You draft well. You draft based off of identity, but when you don't have identity and you don't coach well, there is no concept of building the roster. We have no clue. We've talked about it. You can't evaluate when there's no clear fucking identity. Sorry. I mean, it just like, we all want the same thing, just to be clear. We all want the same thing. But, okay, let's start in 2020, just because that means players could have been on the team for 4 years or something like that. Chase Young ended up being defensive rookie of the year. Great. All of a sudden, injuries, maybe off-field stuff. He's traded to San Francisco. Antonio Gibson, impending free agent. Sadiq Charles, Antonio Gandy Golden, Keith Ishmael, Khaleke Hudson had a nice game last week. Until then, haven't really heard from him. Cam Curl, amazing pick, 7th round. James Smith-Williams. That's 2020. Okay. 2021, Jamin Davis was the most maligned player on defense heading into his sophomore season. Then you have Sam Cosmi. Okay. Benjamin St. Juste. You've seen the jokes about him on the internet. De'Ami Brown, John Bates, Derek Forrest. Okay. Maybe we can draft safeties. Cameron Cheeseman, we moved up for that. Cut him. Long snapper that normally doesn't get taken. William Bradley King, Shaka Tony, Dax Milne. Okay. That's 2021. 2022, it gets better. Jahan Dotson, promising rookie year. First round wide receiver. This year, what happened? Then we have Fedarian Mathis, who was drafted to replace Deron Payne. Deron Payne balls out after Mathis goes out for the season. We signed Deron Payne long-term. Mathis, couldn't tell you. Brian Robinson, we should be a run first team. Rivera's talked about it. We hire Bieniemy. Percy Butler, Sam Howell. Sam Howell for a 5th round pick has been great. For a 5th round pick, where we were just like, hey, we're trying to figure it out. To lead the NFL in passing yards at any point is an accomplishment nonetheless, no matter how many times you throw the damn ball. Cole Turner, Chris Paul, Christian Holmes. That's 2022. Finally, this year, Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, Ricky Stromberg, Braden Daniels, KJ Henry, Chris Rodriguez, Andre Jones. Guys, it's a fucking joke. That is 4 years of drafts, right? 4 opportunities to be able to get players that fit your identity, that fit your culture, that fit a system, and to be able to produce. I'm not even asking for the Detroit Lions like in draft class. I just highlighted them as a good example of what to do. Jahmyr Gibbs has had a good rookie year. Sam Laporta has had a good rookie year. Then you have Brian Branch. He gets a pick 6 against Kansas City in his first career game. That is already more impact than we have gotten in about 2 to 3 of these draft classes. I won't say all 4 because we have Cam Curl and stuff like that, but that was this year. And then you look at Seattle with Tariq Woolen and all these guys. Like, what are we? Go ahead, K-Dot.
I can't judge any of the draft picks
because of the coaching, but that's all
coaching. It's what I said before you, and I'm glad you went through that because it's so frustrating. But this is not a team. It's just not a team. There's no. You can't watch fucking Hard Knocks and see the Miami Dolphins. You can't watch NFL quarterback on Netflix and not see there's a cohesiveness and a communication that's happening between all of the position guys, between the players talking to each other that know that we're moving towards one direction. And I know that people want to do the instantaneous, like defend Washington at all costs, but you gotta, and they think that everybody has some ulterior motive. Listen to what Chase Young has said when he left. Listen to what Montez Sweat has said since he left. I caught on Grant and Danny earlier this week. They got to talk to Nick Sundberg, who should have never been let go. Mm-hmm. And he can't stand Ron Rivera's ass. Listen to Trent Williams. Listen to anyone that has any sort of inkling or who has been here that leaves and gets to talk freely. There's nothing fucking positive to say. And they do everything they can to find a scapegoat at any given point in time when no one is set up for any sort of success here. It's just not going to happen. And the thing to me that, like, going to Renault's comment and talking about like who gets to go, where we're at, I think this team is talented. I really do. I don't think the offensive line is absolute dog shit. I don't. I like running backs.
Quick counterpoint though, yep. And this is to Renault's point. And I recognize that it was born out of frustration, like you said. Makes sense. He concludes with, "I'm dead inside right now." Like, obviously, there's a lot over there because this team doesn't have that identity. We are 27th in the NFL in terms of cap spend on the offensive line. And next year, that jumps up to 22. but then it drops back down to, I think, 27 or 28 or something like that. So they haven't invested relative to other NFL teams in the offensive line. On the defensive side, we invested heavily in that defensive line. So when I read defense, look, a lot of our first round picks have been defensive linemen and then Emmanuel Forbes more recently. And we lucked into, frankly, Cam Curl and Derek Forrest.
I think if they're 27th in spending on this offensive line, from a talent perspective, from what I think if they're utilized properly, they're getting some of the best value in the NFL.
Yes, that's the point of that, is that they're actually getting decent value for 27th spend.
Incredible value. It's just no one.
So that's
is
to Bernal's
being
point
set
that
up
we can
for
spend more
success.
there. Yes,
We can do any, like,
that's why I want to tackle a
the
left tackle.
idea that if you had a competent fucking coaching staff, no, a competent front office, a competent anyone that can look at anybody and say, what the fuck are you guys doing? Anyone that can just walk in a room and say, do you talk to that guy? Why not? The fuck is wrong with y'all? There's someone that can do that. That alone, to me, if there's somebody just with a modicum of, because it has now reached a point where just based off of what you guys have told us, Ron and Eric and Jack and anybody else, just on what you guys have shared with us, not me inferring anything, the product on the field and what you've told us, you guys are fucking incompetent. You're incompetent. You're great dudes. You're incompetent.
Because we're running up against a hard stop. But this was to me a very productive conversation. So appreciate that comment. Appreciate the comments as we always do, just across the board. One of the things that I'm going to do, have a little bit of time next week, going to begin looking at GM candidates. I know we hinted at it earlier, but
Baltimore.
The
Head
there.
Coach needs to be the defensive coordinator that Baltimore has. We need to siphon everyone to come down the fucking BW Parkway to come here. Baltimore.
Tell you what, that would be a fun narrative too. That'd be a fun narrative too. Those guys are so well run. I'm so curious as to what happens Monday night. You know, San Francisco has all the media praise right now. Baltimore somehow, with the exact same record, seem to be flying under the radar a little bit.
I don't see that, but okay.
It's crazy though. The amount of San Francisco, and it's mostly because look, Philly, Dallas dominate the media, and then when San Francisco whoops both of them badly, obviously there's going to be more of a light shown.
But I think everybody thinks Baltimore's the best team in the AFC.
But they also think of the AFC as weak.
I just think this is the Super Bowl matchup. This is a preview of the Super Bowl.
Who do you got before we did Baltimore or San Francisco?
I just off a spec, I'm going Baltimore this week, but I don't think it has any bearing for what happens in the Super Bowl because I think these guys will face each other again.
Honestly, love both these teams.
Except
they could for all their flaws and people going, what's wrong with the Chiefs? They're 9-5. Baltimore's next 3 games. Rasheed Rice is starting to play well. Baltimore's next 3 games are if they drop 2, all of a sudden that 1 seed's open. Because they play San Francisco and then they play Miami. Okay. I don't remember who they play the very last game. I think it's Pittsburgh, but I'm not sure. But
I'm angry.
What'd you say?
I'm angry.
You're angry.
Yeah, just talking about the team just now. I'm angry as shit.
Yeah. Because
I'm
now
we're really upset.
Yes. That makes total sense. The team again, just going through the draft picks.
I'm fucking angry.
Yeah. Some real shit. Whew. But anyway, no, I think I've also slightly leaning towards Baltimore. I want to see Lamar win MVP. But you know what? We'll see. But thank you guys for listening. We will catch you guys after the Jets game with the recap episode.
Fuck you, Renal.
See you guys later.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.